In the previous video, we looked briefly at the idea of motion presets in the motion editor. And I just want to go through some of the presets that come built in to Flash. Now, to be honest, I've never actually used any of these presets in projects that I can recall, but it's worth taking a look at because they do help to explain how this whole motion tween and the motion editor works. So I've created my red ball object over on the left side of the stage. I'm going to go into the default presets in the motion presets panel, which I open through the window menu. And I'm going to choose this first one, a bounce in 3D. It's going to give us a little illustration of what that looks like. So we see it bounces in, we have a little squash technique, and it rolls towards us in that this ball becomes larger. Now I could apply this to any object. It just so happens I created a little red ball, but this could have been anything. I could use my goose if I wanted to have it fly in and bounce along the ground. So I'm going to click apply, and you'll notice that on our timeline we've now added the motion tween, and we see the transformation points on that tween, and we'll see how this thing bounces as it comes along in time and moves towards us. Let me just test this. And there is the effect. Now let's take a look at the motion editor. So we can see the transformation on the X and Y, and the ball actually moves along a straight path here, but we are applying something called an ease. Now an ease is really acceleration and deceleration, but in this case we have an ease that was pre-built for us called bounce in, and it's two that have been brought into our project for this motion tween. Now if we come down the bottom, you'll see eases, and there's a plus sign here, and I can add more eases that are pre-built for us. There's a spring ease, there's a damped wave ease, and I can even create my own eases if I wanted and save them. But this bounce in causes this ball as it moves to bounce several times. And we can actually see the ease applied here. If I turn this ease off and say no ease, let's watch our animation. The ball just simply comes forward towards us. It's following that straight path. Okay, so let me apply this again as a bounce in. And then there's a scaling effect, X and Y. And as I scroll over here, you'll notice that it scales up and back down. And this is that squash effect as the ball moves towards us. So that's one example of how you can look at these motion presets and how they're built using the motion editor. And if you wanted, you could alter these. For example, I could come along here and say I'm going to move the Y coordinate. So I'm going to create a point on the motion editor, and I do that with this little dot here. That's going to create a point for the Y coordinate. And then I might move it up. So now, if I were to test this, you'll saw that it jumped up a little bit there. I'm going to remove this tween, and I'm going to get rid of all the frames on my timeline. And let's select another motion preset. This time I'm going to fly it in from the left, so fly in blur left. You see the impact there, and I'm going to say apply. I'm going to extend this down just a few frames. We'll go 24, so it's a full second. And let's test this. And let's look at the motion editor, what's happening here. So we're moving our object mostly along the x coordinate, actually not all on the y. So it's moving left to right. And then there's a blur that's being applied as far as a filter. Starts out very blurry. And that blur reduces till at the very end we have just the object. Now there's also an ease being applied here of stop and start slow. So it's going to speed up as the animation progresses. And we can see that if just looking at the dots here, notice they're really close together on the left-hand side, which is showing that it's not moving a lot here, but then it comes in pretty fast and it's moving much greater points each frame, and then it starts to slow down. So it accelerates and then decelerates. I would invite you to simply play around with the motion presets, see what some of them do. Here's one that spirals in. And I need to move my object over. And now if I test this, you can see it spiraling in. It's of a 3D effect. So play around with the presets, take a look at the motion editor and how they're built, and that will help you create your own motions.